Good afternoon, Dr. Nagabhushan. We are glad to have you on Thoughtful Education Leader Survey series by College Dunia. And to our viewers, I would like to tell that Dr. Nagabhushan has done his Masters in Engineering and PhD from Indian Institute of Science and has a rich experience of 36 years in teaching, research, industry, and administration, and has delivered more than 150 talks in India and abroad, and has supervised 9 PhD theses and dissertations. Dr. Nagabhushan has closely been associated with industries like Nokia, Microsoft. He has been a visiting professor to Korea University and Hanan University in Japan too. He has rich expertise in the area of machine learning, and he has previously served as a principal of JSS Academy of Technical Education, Noida, as a special officer in e-learning. And currently he is a part of JSS Science and Technology University and is serving as a principal there. Hi, sir. We welcome you to College Dunia.
Hi. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Great. So moving ahead to the first question, I would just want to know that what is your philosophy of leadership and how would you describe your leadership style?
Well, leadership basically requires a very important concept, like, you need to be a good listener to become a good leader. So I practice that, I listen to people around me, and I always believe in collective wisdom. So leadership basically, unfolds into reality if you are able to take the people's views, study them carefully, listen to them, and finally evolve the objectives that you want to really implement. So in that way, I believe that taking everyone into confidence in an organization always basically yields positive results, and that has been my philosophy here. And I found that if you are able to solve the problems of everyone equally, and you will have multiple productivity. That means the returns are much higher than what basically you give. Initially, you need to really give, and then you need to expect the take. The take will be multiple folds. And I believe that I have practiced this. And leadership also requires a continuous updation of knowledge in and around, local knowledge and global knowledge. You need to keep abreast of the changes that are happening around you, and need to really bring that kind of a changes in your organizations with a vision. So leadership is a very complex phenomenon, and requires a lot of inputs in order to produce the required outputs.
Very well said, sir. Very well said. Moving on to the next question, we would want to know that how do you strategize about the key programs and plans for marketing and administration of your school?
See, our institution, earlier named as Jayachamrajendra College of Engineering, started in 1963. So we have a history of more than 50 years now in existence. And we have produced some of the finest alumni. And the alumni are basically the brand ambassadors of this institution. So to name many people who have really achieved excellence at the international arena, like in sports, Jawahar Srinath was an alumni, and many such people have really contributed to the development of science and technology, heading various multinational companies and so on. So therefore, we have produced finest alumni, and these alumni basically take the institution's name to such a great height. So therefore, the strategy is to really look at the alumni and recognize them, put their accomplishments time and again, have several global alumni meets to tell people that their accomplishments, and then how these alumni are really going to help the institutions to develop. It's not monetarily, but in terms of professionally also. There's a great deal of development possible through the alumni network, and that's what basically we have done. And we conduct this global alumni meet once a year, sometimes abroad also. Last June, I was in the US addressing all the alumni there, and we produced a group actually, which is really very, very active now. So the students who are going over there are able to get in touch with them for internship, job opportunities, and postings, and so on. So the other thing is that how basically we get connected with the society, the societal needs. That's very important. The industrial needs, the curriculum that we are going to adopt. I think some questions are there. Need to be really streamlined in such a way that we are able to produce future engineers. So the strategy, the information technology, does permit us to really put all the accomplishments of our alumni and the new inventions, discoveries, and the best things that are emerging in the institutions are available in digital form. That itself is a great marketing for us. And the alumni have really, played a greater role in terms of their inputs to several committees like NBA, AICTE, UGC. Whenever the committee inspects, we have a very good, input to the system. So therefore, the public perception, is gradually expanding its horizon in terms of the alumni, in terms of the industries that they visit and so on. So therefore, we are not actually exclusively doing any kind of specific marketing, but the takers themselves, are expanding the name and fame of our university and our institution.
That's amazing, sir. And so, how do you plan on using the immense knowledge and experience you have gained over these years in this education industry?
Well, I have been in teaching since 1984, and I have traveled a lot, actually taught in different universities. And every time, it's a great learning experience. Whenever I go abroad, whenever I visit some committee, it's a learning experience. I need to pick actually the best things. I always pick the best things that are available and try to incorporate into the system. So the experience basically is the vision, is the academic ability of an individual to foresee how actually we need to bring changes into the academic arena here. Now, there may be many experts around the country, but I personally believe that in engineering, we need to give more emphasis to mathematics, because the experiential knowledge the students gain may not really drive them through a long journey. Now, already we have enough inventions, discoveries. Everyone is a beneficiary of the information communication technology. So therefore, today there is no need for further research, because whatever we have done so far is good enough for another 10-20 years. We don't need any further expansion. But having said that, what actually our engineers need to do? Is it a routine work, or they need to do something beyond what is already available? What could be the reality of life and the industry in next 10 years' time? It's not defined now. We don't know. So therefore, we need to really look at the global requirements and produce engineers who are able to solve the problems in next 10 years' time, which are likely to appear. So the curriculum that we are developing is not really good enough. They may pave some foundation, but not good enough to really take up those kind of complex problems and so on. So working in the industry can be classified into two categories. Monotonous work, everyone can do, even mediocre students can do. But furthering the research, newer dimensions, newer productivity requires in-depth understanding, a complete command on the knowledge, and able to really see vision to the problems. How do you basically see? It is only through mathematics. So engineering without mathematics, in my opinion, doesn't really help anyone. So therefore, the strategy that we would want to adopt here is that we want to sensitize every student to really think mathematically, be it environmental engineering or mechanical or computer science or electronics, anything, whatever problems that you come, you need to put into some mathematical way, because this mathematics does permit several ways of looking at the solutions. So therefore, the strategy is to really sensitize the students in terms of mathematical insight, number one. Number two is the application of all kind of technologies available today. So you see that today we are living in a digital multimedia society. Without our knowledge, even an ordinary man is basically living in a digital society. That means that we depend on the internet of things. Now, what else is available? We always access them and then manage our life day. Developed countries depend 100% on the web-based information. In a country like India, the things are ramping up. Even the common man, the common laborer, common worker always has an access to a smartphone and is able to see the videos and audios and so on. So therefore, the society that we are actually living is automatically a digital multimedia society, and therefore the technology in the education field, specifically the ICT, has enabled us to use these technologies to impart education. So therefore, the strategy would be to use, somewhere I want to tell that we need to look at the blended education system. So extensively, the faculty need to be empowered continuously, because learning is not at one time. Having finished bachelor's degree or master's degree or a PhD is not end of the journey. It is the beginning of the journey for everyone. And PhD, in my sense, is basically Doctor of Philosophy. This Doctor of Philosophy is basically awarded to somebody who is able to really think, because philosopher is the one who is able to think. So you think, and therefore you evolve a new knowledge, and for that you say that this is my new knowledge, and it is an advancement to the new knowledge, and therefore give PhD. That's PhD. So a person who is a philosopher can always switch to newer areas, newer ways, and by his ability, cognitive abilities, he can always look at other solutions, and generate the people, the manpower in a newer area. So therefore, the strategy is basically using all available resources to empower the faculty continuously. It's a lifelong learning, and enable the inputs and the outputs basically, so that the student should be able to use this for the next input and applications. Okay, so this is how basically I look at it.
Okay, that's great. And since you mentioned about the curriculum of the universities, I just want to understand that how does the curriculum of JSS Science and Technology University ensure the best practice of the industry?
So this way, the undergraduate education, we have about 13 undergraduate branches here in our system. And these undergraduate branches basically covers about 40 courses, and some portions is coming from basic sciences like physics, chemistry, and basic mathematics, and some portions basically come from humanities kind of a thing. And basically this is one layer of foundation. The next 3 years basically is about 30 to 35 courses. They introduce the foundations into specific branch of engineering. They do not really give you the in-depth knowledge, but they pave a strong foundation in the respective subjects. But that may not really be good enough to really work in the industry. So therefore, there has to be courses which are required to be inculcated in the system through wide varieties of programs. Now, in our university, we have a program which is funded by the Government of India, MHRD, called TEQAP, Technical Education's Quality Improvement Program. And in this program, we have specific grant already reserved to conduct varieties of programs like faculty development programs, workshops, seminars, okay, and project-based learning, cooperative learning. All these kind of activities are basically earmarked. Every department basically comes with quarterly plan. This is the amount that we want, and these are the programs. And how do you basically select the programs? The programs are selected in such a way that they meet the vision and mission of their respective programs. So civil engineering, they have their own vision, and whatever programs that you want to conduct through this TUQAP, it basically adds a layer of strength to the vision and mission. So that means there is a continuous improvement in the attainment of vision and mission of every program. So the faculty always take a bottom-up approach. The faculty looks at other things, other universities, other requirements in the industry, and at global level. Look at these are the gray areas where our students need to be considered. And the finishing school basically adds another layer of strength to the existing curriculum. So these finishing schools, about 80 hours of coverage is given in the required disciplines. So we invite industry people to give 80 hours of training during half hours. So once the classes are over, about 2-3 hours every day, we allow the students to take part. So this way, we are preparing the students to not only have the fundamental basic foundations. In addition to that, they are also able to gain the knowledge which basically the industry is in requirements. So therefore, this is one way that we are able to produce the future-ready engineers. So I would say that if not future-ready, at least industry-ready engineers.
Very well said, sir. And being a principal, what do you think your role and responsibility to the university and students are?
The responsibility is a very I would basically call the position of a principal has to really address several things. At the lowest level, you need to get connected with every student as far as possible. You should be reachable to the student community easily, and you should also be available to the faculty whenever actually the need arises. That means you need to have good connectivity. This is one thing. So we actually try to balance this requirement at the grassroots level. So availability for discussions or for any kind of problem solutions is also one of the things. The second thing is basically planning and execution. The planning and execution basically requires the meticulous way in which your departments that you are connecting should be able to get your of events already planned, regular meetings will take place, and the minutes of the meetings are followed. So therefore, it is a continuous activity all the time. So therefore, we involve everyone actually in the system, give equal importance to everything, and there is a plan for growth also in addition to routine works. So the monotonous work like teaching, learning, bringing new things, go together with respect to the department. The departments have been given autonomy to frame their own syllabus by inviting people from industry, inviting people from major academic high-ranking institutions and research institutions. So the academic part is basically progressing with a lot of autonomy to the respective programs. So that program is taken care. And we basically meet the aspirations of the department, like setting up of different laboratories, center of excellence, and so on. So today I'm very happy to state that the placement in the campus development system is sustaining even through turbulence. We are able to offer more than 85 to 90% placement in our system, with 100% in computer science, information science, and electronics and communications, and so on. So this is one of the important thing that we always have in our university.
Great, sir. And what do you think will be the impact of COVID-19 on the education industry in coming years?
I think this is a very hot topic. See, prior to February, somewhere in January or February, we've never expected that we would basically land into these kind of problems. We were watching the video, something is happening in China and so on. We never thought that it would really get into our system to this level. Over the last 5-6 months duration, we have learnt a lot. All of a sudden, to their native places and their homes, and suddenly the faculty who are not technically savvy, who have not used even laptop, have been really put onto online mode. That means you need to really start teaching, prepare your the PowerPoint presentations and so on. So that means these all of a sudden this requirement came, and there was no other choice except to embark on a mission to use this technology for teaching, reaching out to every student and so on, to keep them occupied all the time. So this was done actually to a certain extent. It went well because higher education system does permit the access to the network and also the gadgets to a certain extent. However, there are small percentage of students who are unable to really gain access to the system. That's one part. Now, question is that preparing a PPT and making a presentation doesn't really give you the 100% confidence in a student to acquire the cognitive levels. So in one way, we need to strengthen the cognitive levels of the students. That means 6 different layers are there: understanding, analysis, design, synthesis, and thinking. So these are the different things that we want to really inculcate, be it actually practical, be it lecture, be it a project, be it an interactions, be it a visit. So what cognitive layer strength is improved? as a result of an input. So that means we need to really focus teaching in the 21st century to enhance the strength of these cognitive levels of the students as a result of our input. The input can be anyone what I described here. So the teaching, conventional teaching using PPT is basically one ordinary sense in my way, that in future you will not be able to allow all 5,000 students into the campus now. And therefore you need to go for staggered arrangements. This is my way of really thinking. So if 4,000 students are there, you can allow 1,000 students one day and 500 students in the morning, another 500 students in the afternoon in 2 shifts, so that you maintain distance criteria and you are able to pay attention to every student. Then the other 3,000 students will be at home listening to the online lectures, and next 1,000 students will come next day. So something, this kind of arrangement, if possible, can be really thought of. So that way we are able to manage the sanitization and also thermal checking, and taking care of every individual, keeping the entire thing sanitized. So with less number of people we should be able to manage, but at the same time you cannot really forget the online tools. You need to have a video based lectures. So today if you see, the whole world has opened up for free access to Coursera, free access to MATLAB, and free access to NPTEL and Swayam portal. So in our country, so you have free access to everything totally today, because people know that this is the time to reach out everything. And once this lockdown and other things improve, once you get used to that, you cannot really come back. So therefore, using standard tools is also very important. So what I would say is that in COVID-19, this should be taken as a positive point, that the teaching institutions and especially the student must be taught in all 4 quadrants. The student should be able to receive the input in terms of lectures, PPT, in terms of online simulations. The teacher should be able to show on the fly how things basically work. And there are expert video lectures which are available, which are rendered by the high-ranking, high-profile professors from other universities. And I should be able to show a video clip. So in 1 hour duration, I want to keep the interest of the student intact, and therefore I must basically use standard course management softwares and other tools to engage the student, and also provide group-based assignments. It's not an individual assignment to say copy. 10 students are there, give one problem which is mind-boggling. Tell them that these are the references. Let them study. Let them discuss. Let them talk to anyone on the earth. But end of the day, if all these 10 students understand, that basically adds one layer, one or several layers of their cognitive domain. So this is what basically we need. So COVID-19 basically opens up challenges and learning. So you can really become technically savvy. You can become a knowledge source, knowledge power. And that's what basically is needed for 21st century. So we are embarking on teaching using digital interactive boards. The faculty has been trying to use all 4 quadrant teaching systems, and digital interactive boards have been provided by NPTEL, NPEIU in Delhi, MHRD GEP funded project. And we are using our faculty to register for Swayam portal and to get themselves acquainted with the new syllabus, new topics, and so on. And industry, people should also expand their knowledge horizon on the practical things. So this is how we want to convert the COVID-19 pandemic into something reality, which is definitely different. We need to discover a new reference of really managing the education system. This is my personal view and personal opinion. And students definitely need to really improve their cognitive levels, especially the top layer. The top layer of cognitive level is your creativity, your creative thinking. And this creative thinking basically leads to intelligence. And students must be definitely able to crack any problem, be it a tornado, be it hurricane, be it cyber physical systems, be it enormous amount of trillion bytes of data that we are generating from everything, including healthcare and science and environment. We should be able to really find a logical solution so that we survive and happiness restores on the planet.
Very well put, sir. And what would you like, the students and people to know about your university, which they might not know?
See, our university website is there, and we are a very well established institutions in the southern part of Karnataka. So Mysore is a nicest city known for education. So many universities exist, serene environment, best living. So it's everything basically converging, and 100% placement. So students have a lot of freedom to really enjoy the journey. So you can formulate your own teams and do innovations. We have new age incubation network. So if the idea is good, you will be called for Ideathon. The idea is picked up, then we'll provide you funding to prototype your idea in the network. We have Science and Technology Entrepreneur Spark, where you can become an entrepreneur and start up a small industry in the beginning for 1 or 2 years, and later on you can shift over to a new premises based on your success. So from knowledge acquisitions to prototyping to become an entrepreneur, all these things are available for people who want to really establish the industry. This is one thing. The second thing is that all these programs are there. Now we have bachelor's degree, master's degree, and doctoral programs and postdoctoral programs. So all these things are available in the same campus. So therefore, our faculty, some of them have an excellent faculty. Distinguished faculty names are there. People who have worked in Harvard and other universities are also as a part of the system. People who have achieved excellence and rewarded through INSA fellowship are also there. So therefore, the journey is the freedom. So we need to give freedom to the students to expand the knowledge horizon, and therefore this university is going to really provide all these things. And moreover, we are concerned with the society. We motivate the students in the beginning. In the very first year, we conduct an induction program. Take the students to villages and ask them to study water, talk to the local people, understand their problem. During your journey over next 4 years, can you really come back with some kind of a comprehensive solution so that their life is improved? So this kind of initial thoughts have really worked very well actually, and the idea that a small idea reaches minimum number of people, 1 million people. So I would call this as a Gandhian engineering, because Gandhi invented charaka. Gandhi is not an engineer, Gandhiji, but he toured India and found that a lot of cotton is grown. Okay, this is actually an expert from one of the famous professors of India, Professor Mashelkar, who gave actually a talk in Australia. He only coined the word Gandhian engineering, that he invented charaka because a lot of wood was available, cotton was available. So weaving a thread became the livelihood of millions of Indians during that time. So small idea reaching millions, this should be the theme of our engineering graduates, future ready graduates. This means that whatever engineering program that we are embarking upon, not only they need to really look at the complex problems, but those problems should be able to really be useful to the society, the Indian society at large. We need to be able to produce more jobs to our people to become self-reliant. This is what our central government is also doing in terms of skill development and so many things that are available in the All India Council for Technical Education. They have huge number of initiatives, and this is the time that we need to really make use of such things and become top leading institution in terms of number of entrepreneurs that we are going to generate. Should be one of the yardstick for ranking the institutions in the future, not the industry placement.
Makes sense. And so, how do you tend to establish a healthy relation and environment in your institute and in your university?
So I already said that a healthy relations, is that you need to be, good listener. That means the healthy environment is one where it's a congenial atmosphere for teaching, learning, and research. It mainly reflects on the ability, comprehension of the leader, the principal and the vice chancellor. So therefore, one need to be calm, composed, a knowledge house, need to be polite, need to really be available to the people, solve problems, and at the same time, the leader should also update the knowledge on day-to-day basis. the policies of the government, and the changes in the technical curriculum around the different universities. So need to be really consolidated, and the vision document need to be there, and this vision document need to be revisited again and again. So the NBA basically provides that kind of a tool to see how you are improving every year. The course outcomes basically are the primary key parameters. So therefore, the freedom that you are giving to the respective departments and the faculty is one of the traits for success. So therefore, the students, are taken into confidence all the time. Appreciate the students and appreciate the faculty who do well, and encourage everyone. Even the teacher, I want to tell that, as a teacher, who is a good teacher? A good teacher is one who says that in a class, after finishing some portion of the talk, says that you are encouraged to ask questions. And some students do ask, some students always refrain. And there is a good saying that no question is a bad question, no answer is a bad answer. That means, even the last, last ranking student who want to ask a silly question, one should believe that there is a small merit in it. Encourage them, pat them at the back. So this way, it will basically boost the confidence. So the responsibility to create a good environment also lies to greater extent that not all students are bright who are getting admitted to the institutions. It is the responsibility of the leadership to pull the downtrodden students who are average and below average to above reference. So therefore, the freedom and the enthusiasm that you are going to build, is one of the key parameters that, we want to really do. And enthusiasm, happiness need to be combined. Provide all kind of non-academic activities like a cultural activity or a sports or any other thing should also be part of the integrated teaching learning system in the environment. So this way you can create a good healthy environment through your own systematic planning and execution.
That's great. And so just to, before we end this interview, one last question or it's a suggestion. What suggestion would you like to give to the current youth and the aspiring students?
Okay. No, I have taught in other universities around the world. So our country, has about 3,000 and odd engineering institutions. 15 lakh graduates graduate every year. Some of them are lucky to get a campus job, some of them do not. The advice to the student community is that, see, if you are knowledgeable, the people will follow you. If you are not knowledgeable, then there are chances that your career will have several breaks, ups and downs. The knowledge is the most important thing. Your journey during 4 years of a bachelor's and 2 years in master's, another 4 years in PhD, you need to improve all your cognitive levels. We call Bloom's taxonomy. So every student should always think that, okay, I conduct a laboratory. What is the outcome of this conduction of this experiment? What knowledge that basically I improved? I listened to this talk today, but what is the impression? What knowledge layer is improved in me? I need to really ask question, how things work, why things work, and what I really can do with it. So these are the questions that I need to ask time and again. If I visit an industry, if I listen to a lecture, if I solve a problem, so everything is basically to be seen as some kind of a tangible outcome. The students must remember that whatever action that you perform during your day, during your journey while you are learning, listening into a lecture in a classroom, or doing your own self-study, or doing your own practical, you need to really ensure that hour of time will never go as a waste, but it is adding a layer of one of the parameters, one or several of the parameters of your cognitive domain. So this is very important. If the students, believe that the outcome of performing certain things always yields them, enriches his knowledge component so that he become competitive to take difficult problems to solve, then that will open a plethora of opportunities for anybody. So be it, civil, mechanical, or any branch of engineering, it is the knowledge that is the power. So therefore, one need not have to really go after the job. One need to go after knowledge. And this knowledge should result in creative thinking. Creative thinking leads to intelligent. You need to be an intelligent person. You need to be a smart person in terms of knowledge. So 21st century is not going to be very easy. It's going to be very, very challenging for the future generation students to manage their jobs and profession intact. And one should be able to switch over to the needs of the industry, needs of the society. So therefore, broad-based knowledge in your bachelor's degree is the most essential thing. And small portion of convergence basically happens through your master degree, 10, 12 courses. And doctoral courses will land you into one specific area of a branch in a tree. That branch in a tree basically reflects the knowledge contributed by several people around the world, and you are one among them. Then your knowledge, will always enable that branch to grow through your research and publications and through your students. Like that, we need to really look at that. So therefore, the students need not really be scared about the concerns that are going out, in the current pandemic, but the whole world basically needs knowledgeable manpower. So if you look at the artificial intelligence and machine learning, which are actually, went actually in an explosion, during last 2-3 years, there could be some sudden halt here. But these machine learning and AI applications probably will find innumerable applications in terms of healthcare, in terms of biotechnology, in terms of environmental engineering, because we want to sustain our planet, in terms of agriculture and food management. So because we want to have good food, we want to have a clean environment, and we want to be healthy. Other materialistic things may really have a smaller role to play in all societies across the world. So therefore, whatever domain that you are looking at, things in the future may revolve around these points. So these are my personal advices, and this is my way of looking at the future. There could be different perceptions from different people, and of course the same object can be viewed from different people in different angles. This is one way of looking at the problem. So therefore, I wish that the students community who are watching this get the benefit of this, and one need not be really scared. Become mathematics savvy. Look at physics in mathematics. So then you will really be most sought after engineer around the world.
Well, thank you so much for such a motivational message to the students out there who are looking to pursue their education. I hope it really helps them, with their future endeavors. And thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for sparing, precious time for this particular interview. We really appreciate this, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.